Here, partly cloudy and 2 below in Aurora, 2 below in Romeoville, 0 along Chicago's lakefront. Your next news update is at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, John Cass of johncassnews.com. And John, we're eagerly anticipating the inaugural tea where Trump and Melania will join Joe and Jill for some Earl Grey to talk about preemptive pardons, perhaps.
I'd just let Melania add it and let her clean them both up.
Oh, boy, will that be fun.
Slovakia woman, yes.
Something that Trump said at his rally last night on Inauguration Eve may have take on renewed importance given the preemptive pardons that we've been discussing intermittently this morning that Biden issued this morning for Fauci, for Milley, and for members and staff of the J6 Star Chamber. It's about declassification of documents, and perhaps that will become more expansive than originally advertised, so that at least what needs to be in the public domain about those individuals and so many others,
like Sandy Berg,
gets to the public domain, even if it's not actionable criminally.
As a first step toward restoring transparency and accountability to government, we will also reverse the overclassification of government documents, and in the coming days, we are going to make public remaining records relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other topics of great public interest. It's all going to be released, Uncle Sam. And I will direct our military to begin construction of the great Iron Dome missile defense shield, which will all be made in the USA. And we will get wokeness the hell out of our military immediately and make it like it used to be.
Yeah, Mark Milley's retirement did great service in getting wokeness out of the military, but
BM before Milley.
Yeah, I mean, it all very much parallels Reagan, as does Inauguration Day, as we understand from our friend Susan Crabtree. The last time the swearing in was conducted inside the Capitol, President Reagan's second term, after he survived an assassination attempt in the first term. Coincidence? Susan Crabtree doesn't think so. She joins us now, RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent, co-author of the new book, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to be on with you, Dan, and with John.
So,
big fan, Susan. Big fan.
Yeah. So the inauguration and the swearing in moved inside because it's cold outside in Washington, D.C. Don't want anybody to get chilly observing this event. That's the official story? Is that the real story?
No, unfortunately, I don't think it is the real story. The real story, if you talk to a lot of Secret Service agents, which I do on a daily basis, and they come to me with information that they are concerned about. Most Secret Service agents, if you solicit them on this topic, they give you the stiff upper lip, very curt response. It's weather-related. But the real sources that have been briefed on the threat will say, in a very careful manner, that the weather was cover for the threats that we're facing. And those threats include a new issue with drones. The biggest drone maker, is a Chinese maker called DJI. And they recently did away with their restrictions. They used to restrict areas in the United States. Their software would automatically stop the operator from flying over runways, power plants, public emergencies like wildfires, and the White House. But now they stopped that just a week ago, recently, and they just give you a little image that says, "Please, warning, warning, you're going into a restricted area."
So the United States stopped that, or did the Chinese drone manufacturers stop crossing over? Who stopped?
The Chinese manufacturers lifted those restrictions, and it, coincidentally, there was a week ago there was an incident with a drone hitting an airplane over the wildfires that was helping fight wildfires.
Right.
Yes.
And yeah, it downed the airplane for several days. So they only have one of those super scoopers now that help drop water. I guess they got it back up, but within a few days. But I don't think that's a coincidence in why the celebrations were brought inside. And there were other. I mean, obviously, there's multiple threats, ongoing threats from Iran, and we uncovered that the FBI even arrested someone to prevent anything happening with that threat. That's been a threat since 2020, since General Soleimani, the Trump administration killed him in the drone strike. So, these are heavy times, and we just pray for security. They did move it inside. I think that was a very, very smart decision on their part.
Well, I'm all for erring on the side of safety in circumstances like this, but it's a little troubling when the reporting is 25,000 law enforcement and military personnel to preside over 250,000 ticketed attendees, and a perimeter that law enforcement and military are very familiar with, and yet there's not a belief that we have the resources to ensure that environment would be safe for the president and others. I mean, it's sort of an indictment of where things are, isn't it?
Absolutely. When the president faced, it was his decision. He decided, the Secret Service brings the information to him. They make recommendations, but ultimately it's up to President-elect Trump, soon to be President Trump again. And they had all the information before them, and that's the decision they made. They take amazing steps. The Secret Service they had helicopters, flat-bottom helicopters out just before they issued this decision to bring it indoors. Those flat-bottom helicopters they go very low, and they sniff for nuclear issues, any kind of nuclear residue. They have a lot of secret protocols. The motorcade itself was outfitted with what some people on social media were saying looked like it was drone mitigation. I asked my sources, and they said that's a top classified security system that I can't talk about with you. So,
and I mean, and all this talk about drones too. I mean, this is on against the backdrop of the curious incidents of those drones over the eastern seaboard, and then Trump's subsequent promise to release a report on the drones as soon as he takes office. So, I mean, there's it's all of this sort of air of we're not getting the straight dope, and we understand we're not going to get all the details, but we're not getting the straight dope about sort of generally speaking what's happening and what the problems are to the extent there are problems, and then do we have the necessary leadership and capacities to deal with emerging threats like what you were just describing about the Chinese taking the governors off their drones?
Yes, and we're not getting the straight scoop. And Donald Trump was on Dan Bongino's show. Dan Bongino, as you know, is a former Secret Service agent of 11 years. And he was raising deep concerns about he said just do a private swearing in the White House or somewhere else. Do it indoors and privately. He was urging Trump to do that for days and days. And Trump was on his show, and he said, yes, we're going to release that information about the drones. Dan didn't push him and say, what about this particular your inauguration. He didn't push him on that issue. He just said that I'm going to release the information about the drones, the fleets of drones we've seen on the eastern seaboard. But last night, or yesterday, late afternoon, that I wanted to address. There was some concerns about the security at the stadium in Chinatown where Donald Trump spoke last night. I'm hearing that it was really dark in that stadium. They did have a lot of agents around, but there's concern that some agents that were involved in Butler were part of the security detail for Donald Trump. Yeah.
Do we think the inaugural tea with the Bidens is going to be okay? Is that covered?
Well, the Secret Service feels much more comfortable when Donald Trump is at the White House. They have that very fortified. They raised the fences, as you know, after the incidents during the Obama administration, where there was fence jumper got into the White House with a knife, and they didn't shoot him before he got into the White House. So they raised those fences. They have it very well fortified, especially at a national special security event like an inauguration. So I don't think so. I think the dynamics are going to be much more interesting in the interplay between the two of those figures and how they interact.
Were you? I mean, you're the national political correspondent for RealClearPolitics. Were you surprised by the preemptive pardons, either that they were issued or that they weren't more expansive to include Jimmy Biden and other Biden family members?
Of all people.
Yeah, I saw that this come out this morning. I was not surprised whatsoever. That was expected for many weeks. And interestingly enough, you just had one of Fauci's partners in the Wuhan lab be taken off. He is no longer allowed to work for the federal government. That was a result of the
EcoHealth.
EcoHealth Alliance, the CEO. And I think that should have been coming for years, but finally saw that right before, interestingly enough, that Trump takes off as just days before you got that news. So I'm not surprised. I'm surprised about Jim Biden. He's definitely maybe
the original bag man, Susan. The original.
Yeah. And he he started down this road years ago with doing inappropriate things, selling on his brother's name. So yeah, that's quite interesting now that he didn't do that, and maybe he resents some of the things his brother did. Maybe he wasn't fully disclosing them at first.
Well, he doesn't resent the cash, I suspect, but and not to mention, I mean, if you get Jimmy, then you could move on to the big guy too. I mean, does the decision not to include other family members, not named Hunter, by the big guy, does it signal anything about what they expect from the Trump administration, that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Trump's disposition is just to let this go and move on, or is that a bit of a gamble that the big guy is taking?
I certainly think he has an eye on his own legacy, and if he did that, that would be in the history books, and as he would know, that everyone would know that it signals guilty. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have talked to people in the House Oversight Community and in Congress, and I don't think that they are going to continue to go after Hunter after this. I think they've done their damage with Hunter, and they want to move on to bigger fish like Fauci.
Susan Crabtree, RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent, co-author of the new book, Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream, and now threaten us all. Susan, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Dan.
Love to talk to you about your book later.
All right. Let's get that on the Chicago Way podcast. We'll have to schedule that. Very good.
Seller book.
Susan Crabtree joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
My name is Dr. Joe Mealy. I've been a dentist for 56 years, and I'm a certified nutritional consultant. I started taking Balance of Nature 15 years ago. I think most people think when they eat fruits and vegetables, this is their idea of fruits and vegetables. I had an apple today. I had a pear today. I had a banana. That's their fruits and vegetables. They don't understand that each one of those fruits and vegetables has different nutrients than the others. Balance of nature has made a significant difference in my life, in my wife's life. I feel we're on this earth to help each other, and if other people can benefit from my experience, I think that would be one of the best ways I could justify still being here at 81.
Go to balanceofnature.com and get 35% off your first preferred set with free shipping as a new preferred customer by using discount code CHICAGO.
Are you heading into the new year with that same old joint pain?